It's now time to go through the winners and losers of the week. But first, a mention for Marcel Myrick, who's tweeted from the States.
Hey.
I think he's enjoying the show. He sent us a picture of each one of us, unless he's plotting our assassination, which hopefully isn't. Anyway, moving on. An undercover investigation, by the Daily Express has exposed that a pro-Palestinian group is planning highly organised disruption on a nationwide level tomorrow in 5 British cities during Armistice Day. Actually, not tomorrow, on Monday's Armistice Day celebrations. If you didn't hate this group enough already, they're an offshoot of Just Stop Oil. In a secret meeting on Saturday, November the 2nd, it's been reported that they met with Just Stop Oil at a members-only central London bar for an exclusive event to listen to speeches and discuss policy while vegan food and alcohol were served.
Oh, terrible.
Cauliflower burgers and booze. I bet they all got kebabs on the way home. These perfumed ponces don't seem to realise that the reason that they can swan about eating vegan food and picking pronouns is because of the sacrifice of the brave men and women who gave their lives, their bodies and their minds to protect our liberty. Instead of showing gratitude, they're going to try and sully events that give respect to those men and women. I wish I could go back in time and tell those brave men and women who spilled their blood for Britain not to bother. Look what's happened to their country. What on earth did they fight for? Now, I've got to ask as well, why are they always posh? It's always posh kids. Just Stop
people.
Oil,
Yeah.
or these ones who are, I think there's some sort of Palestine, pro-Palestine group, so of course they want to somehow drum up support by insulting our veterans, which I don't know how that's going to get.
Well, they just don't care. They're like, well, the people that fought in World War II were working class, so we don't really mind. It drives me mad, and the fact that they want to do this on Armistice Day is just... They've picked the worst day. There's going to be people there that are not going to have any of it. So, do you know what? Go for it. Go for it. Let's see what happens.
It's worse than it. It's absolutely sickening. Well, we're honouring those who fought for this country, fought for people's right to protest, that they want to disrupt it. But you're right about them always calling them posh. They turn around, in the relevant article, they talk about that he went to Upper Latimer School or whatever, and they say it's £8,300 a term. It's not. It's £8,333 plus VAT because of Starmer. That's how it's worked on that sort of basis. No, it's an insult to the people who died for us.
I absolutely agree with you, but Ben's got a great point. A lot of the people who are going to be at these remembrance events are going to be veterans, and they're going to be very good at fighting and very physically fit, and if a bunch of scrawny...
They're not going to do... And I don't know anybody who has converted to Just Stop Oil as a result of all their antics, whether it's throwing stuff over priceless art, disrupting major sporting events, or now insulting our heroes.
And
I think it's disgusting, and just stop.
It is, and the veterans are certainly not going to be looking at Keir Starmer when he comes up, because they're all going to turn their backs, so they'll be looking at whoever's causing trouble, and it's just, go for it, see what happens, that's what I say.
You're just going to turn people off, and you're probably going to get a punch in the face as well, which you quite deserve. Now, staying with a similar theme, people always ask, how could the Nazis happen? That's what people always ask. In 1930s Europe, Nazi mobs rounded up and beat Jews in pogroms. These pogroms have returned. On Thursday in Amsterdam, we saw Jews hunted by Muslim mobs, beaten in front of their children, forced to say "Free Palestine" and thrown on train tracks. It's a warning that we've got a warning that distressing images are about to be shown on the screen now. That's a horrific scene of a large mob of Muslim men beating a man and throwing him on some train tracks in Amsterdam. I mean, thank God it's Islamophobia Awareness Month, or someone might complain about it. Israeli football fans were in Amsterdam for a Europa League game with Dutch side Ajax. There was some usual football jeering from both sides, and some Palestinian flags were pulled down by Israeli football fans. Shouts and flag pulling, this is pretty standard behaviour for football lads. But Amsterdam, like most European cities, has a huge Muslim population. Mobs of men, believed to be of North African descent and who were unconnected to the football, the Dutch side Ajax is a Jewish team anyway, they hunted down not just Israeli football fans, but anyone they thought might be Jewish. People were beaten and forced to show their passports to prove that they weren't Jewish, just like the Gestapo used to do. Papers, please! What's worse is that people on the left seem to just make excuses for these Muslim mobs. Guardianistas, like Owen Jones, blamed the violence on the Jews, on the victims themselves. The far left have always marched shoulder to shoulder with Islamists. The mayor of Amsterdam is a member of the Green Party, and these mobs are the street militia of the left. Although the left would do well to remember what happened when they allied with Islamists in Iran in 1979. Once they'd overthrown the Shah of Iran, the socialists turned round to their Islamist comrades and said, "Oh, this is super. Where shall we build the queer vegan poetry cafes?" And the Islamists shot them. And Keir Starmer wants to bring through Islamophobia laws to protect Islamists from criticism. They told us import the third world to Europe. They said multiculturalism is going to be really super. Well, it's not working out that super for some of us. Now, I'm just amazed to see the left making excuses for anti-Semitism.
It is so disgusting. Another regular viewer is somebody called Louise Dankelin, who's in Cambridge, Massachusetts, who talked about her father suffering similar sort of things in Nazi Germany and that sort of stuff. It's absolutely disgusting. We should call it out. Yeah. Nobody should be living in fear on that sort of basis. Those scenes are disgusting. There's no humour in that at all. And it's absolutely right. We should condemn it.
Exactly. It's one of those things where you look at it and you go, how can someone have an opposing view to this? How can you look at this and go, oh yeah, but they were giving it some? And no. How can you even think that? And I didn't know what a pogrom was. A pogrom? I didn't know what it was until
it was a computer pogrom.
I thought it was the little things that you used to do at school. Pogs. But no, terrible. And you just think, well, obviously I've got this view and this is abhorrent and terrible. Yeah. And you just think,
we can see some of the footage on screen now.
It is appalling.
Big mobs chasing people through the city centre. But I do have to say there were some Israeli football fans were instigating or taking part in it at the start. But apparently it had been organised previously on Telegram and on some taxi driver apps as well. No, so they're using their taxi driver apps to organise, and say we're going to target Israelis and target Jews.
But that's the problem. As soon as they fair enough, okay, they're both giving it to each other, both sides doing with the football. I don't know much about football. But as soon as it becomes, OK, we're going to go and hunt Jews, and if you're a Jew, I'm going to be... That's
and if you look at the whole footage, actually, there are also people climbing up and ripping down Palestinian flags and so on and so forth. And some of those footage, what's happening, we're stirring up hatred. Yeah. Close to home, Josh, who regularly presents a programme called The Headline, and is going to have us on soon, but he got beaten up on the way to a gig from here. And we should talk about these things. We need to cut out the rhetoric on that sort of stuff. We need to cut out the fear.
His personality, though. Now, moving on, and also I've got to point out that Dutch football team isn't called Ajax, it's called Ajax. Apparently, Ajax is a laundry detergent fluid. Shows my football knowledge. Anyway, reading on, has there ever been a better example of government waste than this? As part of the HS2 rail project, our government is building a 1 kilometre long stretch of mesh tunnel to protect some bats from trains that apparently don't even pose a danger to bats. What's the cost of this needless, pointless stretch of mesh? £100 million. That's right, £100 million. For that amount of money, we could buy each bat its own castle in Transylvania. I mean, this is ridiculous. This shows why Donald Trump is completely right.
Let me tell you about this bat, however. It's the Bechstein bat. It's not just any old bat, it's the Bechstein bat. And this is what happens. You have to protect the under the Wildlife Act of 1980. There are loads of them. They keep breeding because they're really happy. 1981, that's what's supposed to happen. But you're right, it is backshed, isn't it? You work on that sort of basis. The whole project has been populated with disaster. It's been a complete waste of money, and you're working on that sort of premise. And they sort of abandoned it, and then we were going to say we're going to get something super fast because you can save a nanosecond to get some of these important cities. They should have called it earlier. Focusing on the bats and the wildlife and that needs to be preserved is an important thing. And a friend of mine actually runs a company that basically does these searches for the crested newts and stuff like that. A company called Wagtail. Colin. You work on that sort of basis. But they do. They hunt out the bats to make sure that they're not endangered. They hunt out the special newts and so on and so forth. We need to protect the wildlife, but let's call out the waste of money, which is what this is.
We need to protect wildlife up to a value of £20. £100 million.
I think we protect enough people that I can't stand. Let's protect them.
Now, the tall children of famous people have been in the news this week. Not just Baron Trump, who's seen towering over his father, who's pretty tall himself at 6'2". No, the one that raised the most eyebrows, though not up to his height, was Gary Barlow's son. This picture resurfaced. It was taken in 2023, I believe, and it led to some hilarious comments on the internet. Let's have a look at them. Here we have Gary Barlow manoeuvring one of his son's Hot Wheels. That's Gary Barlow driving a car. Next one is Gary Barlow holding his son's hand to cross the road. That's Gary Barlow with his hand in the air. Then we have an early photo of Gary Barlow teaching his son to tie his own shoelaces. That's Gary Barlow doing some sort of rope exercise there. Then we have Gary Barlow asking his son how his day at school was. That's just Willem Dafoe staring up into the sky. Then we have Gary Barlow standing in front of his son's new cardigan. This is a good one, recognising the Pringle pattern. That's just Gary Barlow standing in front of a big Pringle pattern. Then we have Gary Barlow handing his son a straw. Brilliant stuff. Then we have Gary Barlow standing next to his son eating a croissant, or croissant if you're Scottish. Yes. I only found out it's pronounced croissant when I moved to England and became middle class. Anyway, Gary Barlow's son is actually only 6'2".
True.
That's not hugely tall. I mean, as a tall person, it's kind of annoying. You get all the questions. You're quite tall.
I'm taller than him. The trouble is, Gary's only 4'6". I mean, and that's the problem. It was actually 5'7" in some reports, but 5'9" in others. So you're working on that sort of basis.
On Tinder, it's 5'9".
Were you swiping left? I mean, what was this? You work on that sort of basis. No, the reality is this: his son is 6'2". It's all about comparisons, but the memes are brilliant. The internet comes alive when you have these sort of things. It's
always the funniest thing. The funniest things in the world are always what your friends share with you. These little jokes on the thing. Like, I watched Have I Got News For You the other day. Awful, terrible.
Yeah, compared to
this is hilarious. It's just people sharing, and it's funny. Good, funny stuff.
How tall are you? I mean, you're much taller than that. I'm taller than...
I'm 6'6".
Yeah, exactly. I'm 6'7".
So you're taller than his son.
But the science behind it, apparently, because people say, well, how can his parents be not particularly tall? They're both 5'7", I believe, and he's 6'2". So how can that happen? Has somebody slipped in some DNA somewhere? No, none of that happened. What can happen is height genes can skip a generation.
Sure. So how you reckon his grandparents were? So his grandparents were enormous. Is that right?
Something like that.
They were giants. Yeah, absolute giants.
We should have pictures of them. Track down those pictures before the end of the programme. We'll give you a credit. We're crediting everybody today, aren't we? I love it. What I also love about Take That, it's all about Orange this week, isn't it? We've had Trump and so on and so forth. Jason Orange, come on. What happened to him? He left early, didn't he? Together with that other one, which did nothing afterwards. So
I don't know enough about Take That. Robbie Williams.
Yeah, there we go.
He did loads. He got hooked on drugs. He was
brilliant. I love Robbie. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I love Robbie.
The reality is, poor old Gary, really talented artist, but Daniel's 6'2" is not that big, and it's all about comparisons.
He'll just be at home going, I don't know why everyone's talking about...
Oh, you're much better at that than your American accent. Come on, you're very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Now, there was a shocking scene in London last week as a so-called anti-fascist protester brought her kid along and taught her kid to scream profanities. Take a look at this.
Nazis. Yeah. All right, would you like to elaborate?
I think he summed it up, really. Nazis.
And these are the people of kindness and tolerance. It looks like child abuse to me. And also, she seems to have stuck a jellyfish to the front of their faces. Little joke there for people listening on the radio. We had to blur their faces. But that's, a child swearing, calling people Nazis. And that was it.
But it's so wrong. And parents shouldn't do that. The kid probably knows nothing about that. It's going to haunt him for the rest of his life because that video will always get replayed now. And it is so wrong for the parents to do that. And I think it's funny to get them to swear. I mean, rubbish.
There should be a test.
Absolute rubbish.
There should be a test before you have children. There should be a little test of will you do this? Will you dye your hair pink? Yeah. And if the answer is yes, no, you're not allowed children. You're going to dye your hair pink and blue. No. It's ridiculous.
Are you going to dress your child up like Mad Max and teach it swear words and tell it everybody's a Nazi? I mean, this is the thing, because this wasn't in opposition to a Nazi rally, even though the far left describe any. This was basically British patriots and some nationalists who are marching. It wasn't we don't have a massive Nazi problem in the UK. We're the
not a small one.
No. we're the country that beat the Nazis.
Yeah. And what she's doing is essentially what the Hitler Youth did. She's doing exactly the same thing. These are your views. You have to have.
And you also know, I mean, if you want to draw a crowd starter fight, P.T. Barnum always used to say that. You know, if you're going to get kids to say something inappropriate, it's going to go all over the place, even on this brilliant show here as a result of it. But what's going to happen? It's going to backfire. You shouldn't be doing that to your kids. It's unfair on them. It's going to ruin their lives accordingly. Stop doing it.
It's awful.
I'm not going to teach my kids that, left-wing people are evil or, or dehumanise them or anything like that.
I was going to say stay away from
I'll let my kid work it out.
Or teach them how to debate. It's OK having different opinions. People should voice opinions and get the child to explain why or whatever. Have a view, but give them a sort of balanced view. Don't prejudice them on that sort of basis. Kids are much clever. I've just come back from Japan, being all over the place. The kids there are so bright because you treat them...
they have to
But they teach them at an early age to think. And if you teach your kids to think and debate and so on and so forth, it is superb.
Yeah, I've seen Karate Kid. Also Trump, Trump got such a clean sweep with young people. Young people really swung to Trump because they see through all the nonsense of the ideology, all the gender.
People are much cleverer than we give them credit for. Let people think for themselves, present the evidence, let them come to their own educated
decisions. It seems like whenever
decision.
kids are forced, these views are forced upon them, they soon realise, oh, OK, this is all nonsense.
It's all nonsense.
My mum smells.